Where are you coming in from, by the way?
Well, I have a place. I live in London, but I have a place.
You live in
here.
London?
I do.
What
yeah.
part of London?
Marylebone.
Oh, what made you choose London? I grew up there.
Around this stuff. I'm an influencer, not a decision maker. My wife told me we were moving 5 years ago.
You sound like a great husband.
Yeah. Well, I'm on the road a lot, so she says I don't get a vote.
Is your wife British?
No, she's actually born in Poland, raised in Germany.
Okay.
And both my parents are initially from the UK, so I was one.
Oh, nice. So you have the citizenship.
I have dual.
Okay.
I was almost drafted when the Falkland Islands crisis broke out, which my mom was not anticipating.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your parents are British, but you were born in America.
Born in America, yeah.
And are your parents still in America?
My mom's passed.
Okay.
My mom passed. My dad is in San Diego.
Oh, so they stayed.
Oh, yeah.
Does he still have his accent?
Oh, it's a Scottish accent. And
he's a Scotsman. I love that.
Yeah. If I could give my sons anything, it would be a Scottish accent.
And what made your parents leave the UK?
You know, they just wanted a better life. I think why a lot of people came here. They came here when they were 19 and 22, respectively, on a steamship from Glasgow and London, respectively. And
man, your dad's from Glasgow.
Yeah.
Well, Glasgow was a bad
Where are you
time.
from?
I'm from London, South London.
Okay.
I came out in 2014.
Oh, so you've been here a while.
So yeah, came out when I was like 26, just about to turn 27.
Yeah.
I've been here 10 years now. But I'm thinking about what my exit is, and when I talk to Trevor about it all the time.
Oh, really? We should talk about that.
I'm just like, I'd like to have a foot in each world. Like, how can I build my career so I'm like partially in LA, partially in London? Because I don't know how you feel, but I found London very like grounding and like grounded in a way that I haven't found in the US.
Yeah.
As much as US has lots of opportunity and all of that, I'm just like...
I think about that a lot. We should talk about it.
We're talking about it, yeah.
Oh, we are? Are we recording?
Yeah, we're recording.
Oh, God.
Welcome to the podcast.
Well, I'll be infinitely more charming and insightful then. So the way I would distill the difference between the US and Europe is the US is still the best place to make money and Europe's the best place to spend it. So my crude reductive analysis on someone at your age is you're probably still in the making money part of your phase. Mm-hmm. There's more opportunities that will bump off of you in the US than will in triple the time in Europe. But once you get to a point of economic security and you start thinking about lifestyle, Europe's a much more civilized, sane place. It's great for kids.
Yeah, I've got 3 kids.
You can get a much better bottle of wine for $10 in Spain than you can anywhere in the US. The people are friendly. But the reality is the opportunities and the risk capital just isn't there. For every company in the US, there's 5 million in venture capital. For every company in Europe, there's 1 million. So there's just not nearly the risk aggressiveness and the opportunities to make money in Europe as there are here. So I would say as I was when I was your age, I was very economically focused. I wasn't trying to be a better person or find a family or change the world. I was trying to be rich. Mm-hmm. And America is absolutely the best place to establish economic trajectory. Once you have money, peace out to Europe.
So this is actually a question I had for you. You know, I think when you say the name Scott Galloway, depending on who you say it to, depending on where they've seen it, they have a completely different idea of you, which I actually love. Like, I know some people, I said, Scott Galloway is going to be on. Immediately, some of my friends were like, man, finally, talk about masculinity. We got to talk about being men. We got to talk about... Then I say to some of my friends, Scott Galloway's on. They're like, yes, talk to the man about capitalism. Talk to him about tax. You know, the business work. We got to talk about... Then I'm on with Scott Galloway. They're like, oh man, please talk about like what's going on in America and what's happening in the world. And the conversation organically started in where you are, where you see the world, where you see America. Do you think that what's happening in America is bad, or do you think there almost needs to be a new, I don't want to call it a new world order, but like, if we think of a world without like borders the way we've drawn them, right? Yeah. There used to be this general trajectory of people. They would work in a small town or live in a small town, grow up somewhere, move to the big city to make money, and then generally they'd migrate back to the small town at some point. Now, if you think about generations that came to America before then, they left the small town, but on another continent. They've come to the big town that is America. They've made the money, but now there's no moving back. Do you think like America's always just going to be about making money? And where do you think that leads us ultimately?
I think what's going on is mostly bad. I think that there's a series of 80-year alliances, the post-World War II order that was based on trust, reciprocity of free trade, a general notion that America might get it wrong, but our heart was in the right place, and that we believed in rights, women's rights, civil rights, democracy. We would push back on autocrats. We would push back on war criminals. And those alliances feel like, or that playbook feels like, and maybe we were taking it for granted, has been ripped up. And just distinct of the morality of what I think is unforgivable surrendering to a murderous autocrat. Put the morals aside and just talk about it economically. We have some of the best trading relationships and mutual reciprocity agreements with the largest economies in the world. We trade, we get along, we trust each other, we're willing to go arm in arm with each other. Let's look at Canada, largest undefended border in the world. That says something about our friendship. Open trade. They led us into World War I. We followed them. They were in World War II before us, training Allied pilots. I love the test of that wonderful, very emotional test of friendship that the Holocaust survivor said to Buffett when she was saying, who are your real friends? She said, my test is, I think, would they hide me? That is a very puncturing question, right? And the reality is, in the 1979 hostage crisis, the Canadian embassy, they hid us. They hid 6 American diplomats, taking enormous personal risk to get them out of the country, and then they stayed behind. And if they'd been caught, there's a good chance they would have been hanged by cranes. So the Canadians are willing to hide Americans. They are really true friends. And right now we're in a situation where they don't even understand why we're trying to levy so much damage on their economy. So this post-World War II order that America has been sort of the leader in is being ripped up. And I don't think it's a good idea. The silver lining, I like to think what could go right. I struggle with anger and depression, so I consistently ask myself what could go right. What could go right is that possibly Europe is finally a union. And that is, they realize their rich uncle, it has lost his shit.
Yeah.
That there's no more trust fund.
We cannot count on the $800 billion military umbrella and the economic, what I'll call consistency and rational thinking of America. And they are talking about increasing their defense budget from 1.9% of GDP to 3%. And I think that's stimulus. I think Europe actually coordinating because of the crisis around a lack of American leadership. The EU economy is $19 trillion. Russia is $2 trillion. Russia's actually smaller than Canada. So there's no reason that if the EU gets its shit together and starts coordinating and increasing their military budgets, they shouldn't be able to push back on Russia all on their own. And I think that stimulus and also the spillover of technology might actually create an upward spiral of economic growth in Europe. So I'd like to think the silver lining here is that some of the most advanced, civilized, democratic economies in the world and some of the most robust economies are quite frankly getting their shit together. That Europe is a union for the first time in a long time.
Mm-hmm. Some would argue that that stimulus is part of the reason that we're in the problem we're in today. Mm-hmm. You know, building our economies around the military, spending our money and really getting things going by sort of getting wars going. And we've seen the effect that it has on an economy. You go to war, things start moving. You know, people start getting paid, things start getting made.
But it's also war.
War. And scholars who know far more about this than I would when I sit with them, they'll say to me, you know, the US has always been very bad at actually understanding where Russia is versus where Russia says it is. You know, and one of the more salient examples was when Russia invaded Ukraine and the tanks were falling apart in the mud. You remember that? And I remember analysts were shocked. They were like, well, these tanks are trash. And we didn't know that it doesn't look like Russia's infrastructure is as robust as we thought it was, the military infrastructure, right? And I couldn't help but think back to the days of Gorbachev and all of these, not that I was there, but when I watch documentaries and I read and I go, Russia's bluffed for so long. And America has responded to that bluff for so long that some people argue that it's just a war of bluff that never ends. Mm-hmm. And some would say, and I wouldn't be the one who says it, but I always like to consider these crazy ideas. Mm-hmm. Some would say, although Trump may be doing it in the wrong way, he's the person who's breaking this thing and it may lead to the right conclusion. How do you, because I know you're always thinking about the pros and the cons of everything. Mm-hmm. Do you think in a weird way, Trump might be doing the right thing in the wrong way that gets the world to a better place? Or do you think it was better for it to continue the way it was?
Yeah, I think on the whole, this is not good for America and the West. And I would just want to acknowledge that Eisenhower, a general, warned of the military-industrial complex. He said, if you build privatized shareholder gains based on a war machine, you're going to invent reasons to need the war machine. Having said that, I would argue that we on the left are sometimes naive about the fact that the moment some bad actors believe they can come for us and take our Netflix and our Nespresso away, they will. And that I actually am a bit of a war hawk and believe in a very strong defense. I would also argue that just economically, 2 points, if you look at the most valuable companies in the world, whether it's Apple or Google, they're built on the backs of middle-class investments vis-a-vis the Defense Department. So GPS, which is what all mobile technology is based on, was initially a technology developed for ICBMs to put them in the pocket of Gorbachev.
Yeah.
DARPA, which is what the internet is built on, was paid by an extraordinary investment meant to create a hubless communications network so we could communicate with each other after the Russians nuked us. So I would argue the military spending for the most part in the U.S. has been, I would argue, a net positive. Now, that's not to say that it should anyway rationalize entry into Southeast Asia or into Iraq. These are disastrous positions. Now, as it relates to, let me go to Ukraine. I think of a manager as someone who's just supposed to allocate capital to a greater return than your peer group.
Yeah.
That's their job as managers. The job of the president is he's the biggest capital allocator in history. I would argue that the decision to allocate $60 billion a year to Ukraine is one of the best investments that has ever been made in the modern world. In exchange for that $60 billion, to your point, we've kind of defanged the reputation of this supposedly ferocious army of Russia. It was 5 days and Kyiv's fallen, right?
Yeah, that's
that
what
did not
said.
happen.
Yeah.
We've taken out a third of their kinetic power, a third of their tanks, and much of their navy has been taken out. Also, Russia is not a good actor towards us. Their intervention or introduction to our economy is to steal our IP and attack us from a cybersecurity. So them being focused on a failed war, a defenestration of their quote-unquote ferociousness, and also sending a signal to the world that when the West binds together, we are a formidable fighting force. And all of this was without a single boot on the ground from America. In addition, that $60 billion a year, somewhere between 70 and 90% of it, has come back to the U.S. to manufacture weapons, mostly in red states. So for about 8% of our military budget, we are keeping a bad actor